Israel-Africa Relations Institute. Eliyah Maharat is the director of the Ta Tarbut Faitlovitch, I hope I'm saying it correctly, which is Israel's premier national cultural center dedicated to Ethiopian Israeli artists. Their full bios was sent to you in the invite. And I think we're going to start off, before talking about Israel-Africa relations in particular, I would like to ask each of the. Can I just ask for the speakers to, for rather the attendees to just please mute themselves?
Well, sorry, do you know what the HP crowd is something? Sorry.
Wait, I unmuted everybody, and you're on mute now, Hussein. So just as speaker, we should unmute ourselves. So I think it's easier. Hussein, you need to unmute. Eliyah, Irit, can you unmute? Can you hear me? Yeah. No? There we go. Irit, can you unmute? Eliyah, can you speak for a second to see if you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Hussein, just I can't hear you. You're on mute, and also Irit. So.
Okay, I've muted myself. Great. Sorry about that. So I want to start, before talking about Israel-Africa relations, I'd like to maybe ask a question to each of the speakers pertaining to their own respective institutions. So I think, Irit, if I could start with you, what is the interest in terms of Africa, in terms of Israeli academic institutions?
No,
Can you unmute?
Irit, can you unmute? Sorry. Just unmute yourself. It's on the microphone on the top.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sorry. Can you repeat the question, because I was busy with the microphone?
Okay. I just wanted to know, before going into Israel-Africa relations, what is the interest, the academic interest in Africa in Israeli universities?
Okay. So I have to start with my idea that it's not enough interest in Israeli academia in Africa in general. We try at time to make some kind of initiative. This was like, for example, the inter-university program of African study, which combined together 3 universities. It was Tel Aviv University, Ben Gurion University, and the Open University. And at time we were able to attract many students and scholars and all the specialists in different areas of African studies. Yet also this program is not working so well now. It's the budget are shrinking, and there is not much administrative support from university. So I think it should be encouraged more. And as for area of studies, we are very diverse. I think we deal with everything. For example, because we are very close to Ethiopia, and we have the issue of Ethiopian Jews in Israel. a lot of the studies are Ethiopian studies. Also, we have more contemporary studies, like my area of research that deals with regional organization and conflict management, and also some of my student deals with the issues of terror, for example, in Africa, or the relation of the global changes, for example, the relation between Iran, Saudi Arabia, and East Africa. So it's very diverse, but it's not enough.
Okay, thank you. Shiri, if we can come to you, and maybe if you could explain to us the rationale for the creation of the Israel-Africa Relations Institute.
Happy to. So it relates a little bit to what Dr. Back has mentioned, that there is a bit of lack of interest in Israel over Africa, and this is what the platform, the Institute, is trying to change. We were founded by an Israeli businessman and philanthropist who deeply believe in Africa-Israel relation. His name is Chaim Taib. He's been working in Africa for over 3 decades, and he was really passionate about opening an organization, a nonprofit organization, that will there to consistently promote Israel-Africa relations on all spheres. If it's economic ties, political ties, cultural, academia, everything. And that's what we've been trying to do. We understand it's a long-term game. It's not something that's going to happen in a year or 2 or even 5. But we've been very happy from what we've been accomplishing so far. And I think there is greater interest just from the start of the year. I can tell you there is a lot more media attention in Israel to this issue. And I hope it will get stronger and stronger.
Okay, thank you. Eliyah, if I can come to you, is there an appreciation in terms of Africa? I'm talking about, culture, cuisine, language, in terms of broader Israeli society. Sorry, can you unmute yourself, Eliyah?
So regarding your question, yes, we can see more and more like African and Ethiopian culture engage in the Israeli society. As you know, like I'm managing like Ta Tarbut Faitlovitch, a cultural center in Tel Aviv, Jaffa. It's a municipality center that encourage like artists in Israeli Ethiopian culture. So we can see more and more like cultural engagement between Africa and Israel. You can see more like a restaurant and a musician involved in the industry of music in Israel. You can see the ties between Africa in the aspect of culture getting stronger and stronger in Israel, not just from the Ethiopian population, like the Ethiopian Jewish population, but as you know, we have a large communities that coming from Africa and Israel. So during the years, you can see the bonding of the Israeli-Africa connection on the aspect of culture.
Okay, thank you. Irit, if we can come to Israel-Africa relations, what is the current state of it? And if I may ask, is there a distinction between North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa in terms of the interaction?
Okay, so I think maybe we will have to divide the question to before and after October 7, and now even more so after the war with Iran. And I think that it's a very confusing situation now. Compared to the past. Compared to the past, we were able, for example, to see the issue of Abraham Accords and the way that this accord affected some countries that wanted to join it. For example, it was Sudan and Morocco and other countries considered to join. After, I think, October 7, thing a little bit obscured, I think, in terms that I don't know, I see some kind of divide in the African continent. For example, the line that South Africa and Nigeria led, and the line that more pro-Israeli country leads. Yet, I think that mostly the relation between most African states and Israel deteriorated after October 7. And I don't know if we can say that it's a divide between Africa north and south to the Sahara, because, for example, Morocco is very she continue adventure with the Abraham Accord and the relation with Israel, while other states such as South Africa and others harsh and anti-Israeli policies. And another thing relates to the issue of strategic interest, for example, the Red Sea and everything that is the Horn of Africa, and the common interest of Israel and some of the Red Sea countries, the Horn of Africa countries, in this area. Yet I think we don't have clear knowledge about what is going here in terms of Israeli policies toward this issue, and it's kind of, I don't know, I say maybe not transparent enough in order that I will be able to, trace it and think what are the main motives in Africa, Israel-Africa policy now.
Okay.
Hussein, if I may add a little bit, I just, from my, as a practitioner, I can tell you that both in the National Security Council and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it's divided. North Africa is under the Middle East division, and Sub-Sahara is under the Africa division. And I think it doesn't really stand with today's current trends, especially in Morocco, because Morocco is seen more and more as African. And so sometimes ourselves in the Institute kind of have some challenges because we need to speak to different departments when it comes to Africa. And we mostly deal with Sub-Sahara, but we do view Morocco, Egypt, and others as part of the continent and part of our mandate as well. So.
Okay, Shiri, I want to stay with you, okay, because Irit mentioned South Africa. Of course, I'm sitting in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know about December 2023, South Africa filing charges against Israel at the ICJ and so forth. How would you characterize the bilateral relations between South Africa and Israel? And I think more importantly, do you see some sort of a way out in terms of breaking this impasse?
Well, thank you. I think it's such an important question. I think we're at the lowest point we had in bilateral relations since I think the ANC came to power. And that somehow correlates with, I think, the lowest support rate the ANC has in South Africa. And Irit mentions the Abraham Accords, and I was a part of kind of the back staff work that had to do with the Accords, and that Accords I think mainly came to life because there was a leadership change in the Middle East in some of the countries, in many of the countries, especially in the UAE. And Saudi Arabia, where they care more about their, people's welfare than to bash Israel. And when we saw that leadership change, we saw with other circumstances also a change towards Israel. And I think, as Irit said, not like 1973, the Yom Kippur War, which was the biggest crisis for Israel-Africa relations, because Golda Meir did so much of, capacity building and agriculture and economic ties. And unfortunately, because of the pressure from Arab states, a lot of African countries, cut ties. But here we're seeing something else. No country severe, almost no country severe, definitely not from the Abraham Accord country, not even Morocco, although they've all been critical of Israel. And none of them went to the ICJ, but South Africa did. And South Africa did many, many things here. And it's at the time where the ANC is at its lowest populist point. And I think that's something to consider. I think the first thing that we can do to try and amend relations is to remember that, like any country in the world, there is Israel and Israelis. There is the government and there is the people. And here, a lot of the people were a democracy. Netanyahu wins for 5 consecutive elections, just over 50% by coalition. It's not like he has the majority of the support of the country. We're talking in an academic setting, and there's so much academic boycott on Israeli institution, which is the most ironic thing, because most academics in Israel are very liberal, are even some I would call pro-Palestinians, but they are getting boycotted from academia throughout the world. So I think the most important thing is to remember that there is a day after this government or that government, and that we have to strive to have people to people, business to business contacts.
Thanks a lot, Shiri. Eliyah, if I can come to you. Okay, so it seems to me that there's a new scramble for Africa. There's a lot of suitors in terms of Africa. I think, what's the value proposition for ties, with ties with Israel for African countries? What does Israel offer to African countries?
From my perspective, like there is two main things, like the value proposition for Africa. I think the unique value proposition, it's the knowledges, like the knowledge hub that Israel can offer and can provide, and also support African country, especially on the aspect of technology, innovation, water management, climate, and agriculture. I think like Israel at the same circumstances like other African countries, and she already gained a significant way, and can share this knowledge and bring it to the African communities. And I think like this is the main thing about like the knowledge hub that Israel can offer like African countries. And then another thing, like it's the cultural aspect. I think like in these areas, like we can really create like connection between societies and communities, not just cultural, academics bonding and communities bonding. And I think like from the aspect of knowledge and culture, Israel have a lot to offer and to create a bridge between Africa to Israel. This is the main thing. This is the main value, as I see. And another thing, like Israel, like except like if I compare it to another countries, it's not just about aid. Like a lot of countries focusing on aid, especially, and like to bring like a material aid, but Israel can offer like the knowledge, like, and the support, and create a change for the African countries. And I think this is the main thing.
Thank you. Let me ask this question specifically about, so looking at the same question I posed to Eliyah, but to maybe all of the panelists, when you are discussing in terms of Israel-Africa relations in terms of Africa can also be quicksand for Israel, because you'll have good ties with Morocco, but that meant that it was contingent upon recognition in terms of Western Sahara. But then that distance you from Algeria, right? So the question becomes, okay, here's a question. Are Israeli diplomats, do they have enough finesse to actually negotiate this relationship? And it's an open question.
Who wants
Sorry.
to go first?
Yeah.
Irit, you want to go first?
No, I think you go and I will join you.
Okay, so these are kind of strategic questions, and can the Israeli system and this is when it comes to relations, Algeria, Morocco, should we recognize Western Sahara or not, Moroccan Sahara or not? It comes to a policy debate really in real life, and then I think. And then you do the pros, you do the cons. I think Algeria case is an easy one for me because it will never be in good ties with Israel. Iran is very strong there. They're very pro-Hamas. Then that's an easy, I think, one to do. But I think any country will have these kind of things that it has to. I look at Rwanda and DRC, for instance. Any other third country will have to balance its policy, right? It has to, it kind of, tiptoe around what it's gonna do and how it's gonna maneuver its policy. So I think, like in every other country, you will bring it to the decision-making table and you make a strategic decision. And I think we have a good strategic process with the bureaucracy that can definitely do that. I personally was there when we had to decide of what to do with Morocco, with on the recognition before we came to Morocco. I won't go into it, but I will tell you that there is a good process, and then it's definitely something we can handle like any other country.
Okay, Eric, do you want to go?
Yeah, I think maybe I would like to add something more from a global perspective. And I think what we can see now is, I don't know how to rightly pronounce it, but maybe the return of the Cold War terminology of, the colonized state and the third world and the first world. And I think this kind of discourse is now more prevalent than it was before October 7 and even before, but now it's more pronounced all over the world, not just in Africa and Israel. But I think in this setting, we have to consider the changing relation, for example, between African country and the West. The new powers that emerge in Africa, the new setting of power, for example, of course, China, but also the Gulf state and Iran and Turkey and other. And there is kind of, I think, more close ties between some of these powers than the ties with the West that become weaker now, or for many African countries. Just yesterday, I read something about the Mali attack of the mines, of the gold mines. For example, it's one example, the relation between Algeria and France, for example. And we have to look at the broader picture and see how we fit there, especially I think if we consider the Trump administration in the United States and the unclarity of his African policy. So I think that traditionally we look to the West as a kind of leading strategic point of Israel. But now things are rapidly changing, and we have to reconsider the global scene, the global stand of Africa within this global environment, and reconsider our policies and commitments.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to say there's a couple of comments and questions in the chat functions, if you can look at it, and it's directed to specific people there. Stephen Gust asked about why does South Africa government support the Palestinian soul wholeheartedly? Shiri, I think you partly maybe responded to that. There was an issue about agriculture, Israel's contribution to agriculture, and and then the other thing is Stephen also asked about the Gulf states in Africa, their impact. And then what trends or shifts have you noticed recently in Israel-Africa cooperation? That Shiri asking that question. And then, and what do you see as the biggest opportunity for meaningful collaboration in the next 1 to 2 years? So I guess it is open to all of you also. Whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
Eliyah, you wanna start? I'll give you the floor.
Okay, so from my perspective, like agriculture, like Israel, it's one of the important countries on the aspect of agriculture, and you can see a lot of NGOs, like Israeli company, like even government-to-government agreements on the basis of smart agriculture. We can see a progress, and important progress for the African continent on the aspect of knowledge, sharing knowledge, and also technology and innovation that regarding like agriculture. So from my aspect, like a lot of, we can do more, and we can have more like bridges on like the agriculture aspect, but there is a lot of involvement like from the Israeli side in these countries, and we can do more about it, and I encourage like also in African countries, South Africa and other countries, to connect Israeli companies and NGOs and to ask them to collaborate on this aspect. Also, I can say another thing. One thing that build these bridges, it's academics, and I think like universities also need to engage on these aspects. And I think like this is the one stage that will withdraw like the NGOs and Israeli companies and Israeli knowledge to come to the continent and to create this bridge. And not just about agriculture. I'm talking about all the innovation fields. I'm talking about water management, about energy, about like the medical side. I can think like Israel can share a lot of knowledge and technology, and I think like there is a lot of companies and NGOs and even the government would love to be involved in this kind of project and to bring their knowledge and the technology to these areas. And the cultural side, I think it's important in order to create like to create like one language and to create like communities that they are sharing together. We need to use this bridge of culture between Israel to Africa in order to create like this path to innovation and other aspects. But if you have another question that you think I should answer.
Yes, Eliyah, if you look at the chat function, there is a question related to your response now. How do small Israeli startups choose which African countries to work with? Are there any political or bureaucratic challenges they need to overcome based on Israeli policies?
I think like startups, they are not connected, especially to the government. They have like an idea and they want to bring the ideas to their like audience. In the end, like the business aspect need to be with the business community and to create a bridge between these communities. It's not about government. I think in the end, if you have a good product, if you have a nice initiative and you have a market, you want to publish that and you want to sell that. But in the, Shiri, you want to add something?
No, go ahead. After you finish, I have something to add. Yes.
So in the end, I think like first of all, you have like different different embassies in. You have like the Israeli embassy in each country, and you have you have economic attaché that can create these bonds, and also you have like different organization, business wise, that we can create the bonds for them. And I think like in the end, like startups, they have huge interest in African countries. I think they want to develop their initiatives to this market, but they need to find the right person that will help them in these countries. And I think the right persons, they are the business aspect and not the governmental aspects.
So it's really kind of opening the floor for me to say that we have a research paper coming out very, very soon that we partnered with other organizations in Israel. That we went and had a deep questionnaire with tens of Israeli companies, not just startup, but tech companies that work in Africa. And we see that there is challenge. There is the language part. Many Israelis speak English, some speak French, but not a lot. And most of the tech ecosystem is based on English. So English-speaking countries is kind of the first and kind of limits the market there. And then they need scale. They need the bigger countries. I think South Africa is one of the biggest and most important markets Israel has on the continent. It is one of the reasons in the Institute, I prioritize South Africa so much, because I see so much potential. And I think healthcare is one of the biggest ones, disaster relief with climate change and everything that's going on, food security, of course, and water, everything that Eliyah mentioned. And I think that research paper that will come out will really help navigate. And also, and Hussein, you know this because you wrote extensively for our institute about the terror in the Sahel. I think we have this is much more sensitive and more difficult, but I think if Israel puts up its capabilities in fighting terrorism, I think it also has a mass value both in cyber and other capabilities in the Sahel region. That we're seeing what's going on there and Israel. And also, one of the biggest values that we haven't mentioned, it's its close relationship with the US, and how in the decision-making floor, and also with us and non-government organizations, if we can, it's what we do. We support the African issue to prioritize it with US government decision makers. We're still engaging. We're writing extensively on this. Why the U.S. should step up its activities in Africa. Why it should have a coherent policy. Why it should have a partnership model and not just exploitive kind of model, where there is no knowledge transfer and there is investment. And I think that too is also a very important value that Israel and the Israeli ecosystem has to give to Africa.
If I might, I would like to add something about the Gulf state, because it was asked here, and one of my area of research is the Horn of Africa state. And I think it's very interesting, because if you look from the positive side, there is much more relation between the Gulf state and the eastern part of Africa, the eastern side, especially the Horn of Africa countries, much more trade, for example, and even working labor force that moving transition in between the country and the investment. But on the other side, the close relation with the Gulf states reflects the rift of the gap between the country that support Iran, for example, and the country that supports Saudi Arabia. It reflects the conflict between these countries and the way they want to influence, to create new spheres of influence. And I think one of the consequences is more weapons that arrive to the Horn of Africa countries. And we know, for example, that when it was the war with Ethiopia and the Tigray region, it was Iranian weapon that was involved there in the civil war. So and the area of the Horn of Africa is a turbulent area with many internal conflict and a lack of food security and climate crisis. So in one end, we can say that these relations are better now, and they strengthen the relation between these two sides of the Red Sea. But from a more pessimistic view, it's enhanced the internal problem of African country. And I think if we consider Israel within this picture, we have to see what will be the consequences of the latest war, the war between Iran and Israel, because I think things maybe change profoundly following this war. We don't know yet if it's finished and what the consequences will be, but we have to see how we relate to the east coast of the Red Sea, for example, the African coast, and see what should be done there in order to, for example, looking for our strategic interest and the more regional interest of this region.
Thank you, Irit. There's some interesting questions in the chat here. There is a question from Omar Shakur asking, there's a large African community residing in Israel, many of whom have deep knowledge of both African and Israeli cultures and reality. In your view, what role can this community play in strengthening Israel-Africa relations? Are there any initiatives or platforms that actively include them in this effort?
Well, I can take, I mean, I have people from Eritrea, Sudan, and other countries that approach me on a weekly or monthly basis. I think we should develop a better platform to engage, and I think there is a place for them to be a bridge between Israel and Africa, and it's something that it's a very valid point, and we should I will take it into some consideration to see what we can do. We obviously, engage with all of Israel and all of Israelis, and they are welcome to. I mean, I this is a call to action. Anyone who wants to strengthen Israel-Africa relations is most welcome to cooperate with us and share the message of the importance of Africa and in Israel and the importance of Israel in Africa.
Okay. Eliyah, do you want to come in?
I think maybe Eliyah will be better in the subject. I have to speak for myself and mention that my interest, for example, in African studies, was that I was part of the as a teenager.
Hello?
I met. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Can I just ask the audience to please mute themselves? Go ahead, Irit.
Yeah, it's the way that I met the Ethiopian Jews that arrived from Ethiopia already in the 1890s, the first. So for me, it was a great interest to know this community, to understand where they come from, and because I felt that I don't have enough knowledge of this community, and so I began my journey at African Studies following this. And I think it's very important that we have enough knowledge about this community, for example, the Jews that arrived from Ethiopia, but other community from Africa as well, and not just learn, but to know how to get assistance from them, for example, in the trade. I think that it can be an important bridge of trade between people that came here, for example, from Ethiopia and Ethiopia itself. And we don't use this knowledge and cultural ties enough. This is what I think about it.
I will say a couple of words. I think like the communities that have like like African community in Israel, they are like really important to build this bridge. They're actually the bridge like between Israel and Africa. And I think like Shiri mentioned before, like from the aspect of innovation and startups, some of the problems it's the adoption, the cultural adoption that a lot of startup facing with that. And actually African descents have this culture. They know also the Israeli culture and also the African culture, and they are actually the bridge, and they need to be more and more involved in this African and Israel initiatives that are happening. And another thing, it's like more than that. I think like Africa and Israel needs professional people. They need people that know about Africa and they know good about Israel. It doesn't matter like the color, it doesn't matter where you came from. I think like in this stage in the relationship between Israel and Africa, if we want to be more involved, we need professional people that knows, that understand, they have like the right tools and the right approach to promote both of the areas. And but I will say, like, I built myself for the last 2 decades, like living in Ethiopia, building like different programs that connected to the African communities in Israel and in Africa. So I know from my experience, it's really important to involve more people like me that have also the background, but also the professional side. So I think also from the African countries, they need to find more and more people that engage with Israel. They know and they are professional about Israel, and they can build also the bridge from the other side. And that's something that I see as a crucial in building like this bridge.
Thank you very much. There's a question or a question/comment from Ben Yehuda in the chat. What will distinguish our engagement with Africa from that of the Euro-American approach? If Israel mirrors the colonial, paternalistic, and white supremacist mindset, such efforts will be counterproductive and doomed to failure. There's another spirit at play in the world today, and Israel needs to recognize that and move accordingly.
Can I answer that question? So I actually, I wrote a piece in Jerusalem Post titled "Africa Needs Partners, Not Donors." First of all, the size of Israel is not the size of Germany or the U.S. or China. It doesn't have the same capabilities and the same wealth. That's why when Eliyah spoke, we spoke about capacity buildings, we spoke about knowledge, we spoke about models, we spoke about advisory and consultancy. These things that Israel can do, and there is potential in others. We can't really compare Israel to some colonialist countries. Unlike what is being said about us, we're not in the business of conquering any country in Africa. And we're very, very small. I don't know how many people know this, but we're only 10 million people and the size of New Jersey. I think that we're smaller than Rwanda, if I'm not mistaken. Irit can correct me on that. So we're a small country, but we are a bridge on a strategic location and bridge between continents and cultures. People don't really know, but more than half of Israel population is descended of Africa or the Middle East, actually. So we're kind of we can be a very can create a cultural a bridge, because we know in business, and Eliyah knows this, and I know this, being in business for part of our lives, is that the culture takes a lot of how you can make good business. If you don't know where you're going, how do you behave, how do you negotiate culturally as well, that's a problem. And that's where Israel, I think, has an advantage, and it is distinctive. It's so we're best most of us are Jewish, 20% are Arabs, and many of them are Muslim, but we're very culturally diverse and ethnically diverse. And I think that's one of the more interesting points we also have to bring to our model. But I completely agree, we shouldn't have an exploitive model, and this is what we push for the Americans to do, to come, invest, look Africans in the eye, see them as a partner and not as a country you have to take minerals from, but you have to do business with, and you have to create these win-win models. If you don't do that, you do more harm than good, and you create a very short-term relationship and not a long-term, which this is really what we're aiming for in the Institute.
Thank you. Irit, Eliyah, do you all want to come in on this point?
I think that she is right in everything that she say, but we can't at the same time ignore the universal atmosphere about Israel now in the world, and especially in Africa, and more specifically in South Africa even, because it's part of, I think, international trend of discourse regarding the neocolonialism or decolonization of the world. And I think we can't ignore the fact that Israel take part of this discourse, and she has certain position. I think, for example, the relation between the ANC and Israel historically and today. So I don't know how we can deal with this international atmosphere that seeing Israel as a colonizer, as oppressive, etc. At the same time, I think I think that both Shiri and Eliyah are right, that the fact that we should make our own small initiatives and try to enhance both academic and cultural and economic relation as much as we can, to show the world that we can do it, and we initiate a lot of things, and we have a lot to share. For example, what Eliyah mentioned in terms of water use and etc. I know how important it is in the Horn of Africa and other places in Africa, for example. So this should be, I think, our policy, our try to change the way that we will try to change, maybe in some way, the international discourse, the radical international discourse about West and not West and Global South and everything. So I think this could be the beginning of a change today.
Well, I mean, as a follow-up on that point, Anthony Rogigana writes in the chat, the best metric Israel can use to suit Africa than Europe is to get rid of putting orders on African states like what the West has been busy on us. Instead, put forward economic terms and open borders for Africans to best use what Israel has developed. And then also on the same theme, Emmanuel Odanya from Nigeria asks, are there formal channels Israeli institutions or partnership frameworks Nigerian NGOs can use to initiate collaboration with Israeli development agencies or NGOs? As someone engaged in NGO-led development efforts in Nigeria, I see a lot of demand for deeper partnerships with Israeli institutions. We are eager to explore models that go beyond agriculture, especially in public health, technology, education, and peace building. what next steps would you recommend for NGOs like ours to meaningfully engage Israel in this direction?
Well, I already put my email on on there, and I can connect him with some people. There is a growing. I mean, I have to say, I mean, there is a growing challenge of how to develop say public projects on energy and water and agriculture. It's a lot about finding the right. You need investments. You know, countries today in Africa having a hard time taking debt on, so that we need finance to kind of there's a big infrastructure of gap that we need to fill, and we need to fill it with a lot of funding, and that, you know, Israel is it's too big for Israel, but it definitely needs to take a small amount or at least part of that load. That's what I believe. We believe in the Institute that Israel should formally establish a DFI. We don't have our own national DFI, and that will help bring businesses to Africa and Israeli technology. And that's something we're working on to encourage the Israeli government to do. But there are several organizations in Israel that are the connectors, and we can also happy to support them and help to engage in this dialogue and conversation and connect them with the right people. There is a big institute in Israel called SEED, Society for International Development, that is kind of this platform of hundreds of organizations in Israel that has to do with international development, and I'm happy to connect to it. And we have research grants that we are doing together, and other papers that I mentioned before. So I'm working a lot with the community, the ecosystem of international development in Israel, to support, to focus on Africa, and to, you know, to raise awareness. So it's one of the pillars that we are doing here in the Institute.
Okay, can I ask any of the participants if they have a take? Stephen Gust asks in the chat, do you think the mooted Israel-Africa summit will ever get off the ground? The Togo attempt failed miserably.
I think I think we are at least working on getting summits off the ground. There was supposed to be a summit before the war, before October 7 broke out, and I believe that after the conflict in Gaza will hopefully end very soon. Hostages come back, we de-escalate the situation, and we hopefully come to some sort of a peace agreement in the Middle East with the Palestinians and with others in the Middle East. I think then we can have this summit. We have more bandwidth from our government to do these kind of ventures, which I think are super important.
Okay.
No.
Can I ask this, because it's related to Stephen's question and something that we haven't spoken about in this conversation, and that is the African Union. So Israel has diplomatic relations with over 40 African states, at least in terms of sub-Saharan Africa. But as you know, there was a big contestation about Israel's observer status at the AU. Do any of you all see this issue being resolved in the short to medium term?
I just wanted to speak about the African Union, and I think it's a very important point. And we know, of course, what happened recently with the observer status. But my belief is that we should also look at the regional organization at Africa, the REX, the regional economic community, for example, ECOWAS or SADC or IGAD, which is my kind of interest in the its mediation role in conflicts in East Africa. I think always when I met a diplomat, Israeli diplomats, for example, going to to serve in an African country, I always say that it's very important to enhance the relation with this African with this regional organization, because I think they are power to be reckoned and to deal with, and in spite of the fact that sometimes they are not effective, they are effective in some ways, and it's important to Israel not just to look at the African Union as a continental organization, but also deal with the separate regional organization all over the continent, and some of them are more efficient, other less, but still it's very important, for example, in terms of internal trade in Africa, the way to because many people talk now about the need to enhance the trade within Africa and between African countries. So I think that it's important role for the regional organization, and Israel should look also to enhance its relation with the regional organization.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Anthony Rugigana asks a question, or maybe it's a comment. China has been best in penetrating Africa because it completely provided open doors to Africans in all areas like academics, where annual scholarships are provided. E-commerce platforms are embedded on free basis at Alibaba, low interest rate, and vital role of pre-financing more of major economical projects in Africa entirely. I guess what the question becomes in terms of in terms of Israel here. Does anyone want to respond to Anthony?
Well, again, it's Israel is not a big market. I think if you want to compete with China, you have to address it to the U.S. market. And I think you had a seminar, you had a webinar on that just a short while ago. And it's definitely there are visa issues and trade issues right now. I know the Chinese have worked with African countries to have one united stand against the tariffs and to completely who's sharing? Irit, is it you or?
Yeah, just a second. I got phone.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I just want to add something.
Because it's too.
You can see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Something that the U.S. should change.
Okay. Just to add, Shiri, do you want to add something, or did I erupted into?
No.
No, it's okay. Okay. So just one of the things that I researched recently is the China involvement, for example, in peace initiative or mediation initiatives in Africa. And I wrote a piece about it, just recently published in a book that deals with China and developmental peace in South Sudan. I think it's very interesting, and I also review now an article about China as in its peace initiative, or its effort to be portrayed as one that also deal with not just building infrastructure, but also with more they try to create more positive image about its involvement in Africa, but of course it's with a lot of criticism. So it's very important to recognize the power of China in the African continent. At the same time, look at its limits and the problem it's create. And there is a lot of research about it recently. That's what I want to share.
Thank you so much. Irit, can I
I'll
ask
stop
you?
share. Just want to stop share.
Yes, please. I just wanted to ask you a question. So you have all of these communities and so on. What's your take on the African Free Trade Area and basically how Israel can connect with that then?
Again, it's very complicated if we think about Israel's status now with many African countries. It's the issue of diplomacy. But I think, again, if you think about like smaller enterprise or like NGOs or smaller industrial initiative, it can be the way in. For example, IGAD in Eastern Africa, it look many times for expert in climate hazards, for example, or with water policy. And I think if we can share through these channels, it could be a good start for reinforcing the relation between Israel and African states, for example.
Okay. There's a question from Mikhail Gorski here. Do you think the destruction of USAID and rapid deterioration of US diplomatic capabilities in Africa, firing professionals, closing departments, etc., create opportunities or risks for Israeli influence in Africa?
I don't think it has I think the move by the US to cut off to close US aid in such a short notice was the wrong move. I don't think it should diplomatically decrease its activities in Africa, just the opposite. At the same time, what is coming out from Marco Rubio is that they want for it to be more efficient, to be more let's say considering their own economic interest and be more kind of a tool in their foreign policy, which I think was the original thought behind USAID. And they're kind of cleaning shop. I think the way they clean shop was done very unfairly to the people on the ground, and we actually see a lot of we see the kind of ripple effect of that on humanitarian organizations in Israel that work in Africa, and we see more of a demand and more need that now comes to those humanitarian organizations. Look, I don't think right now, I mean, up to now, there wasn't such a correlation or relationship between what the US does in Africa and what Israel does in Africa. I think they kind of lived on almost, except for the issue with the Abraham Accords in Morocco, they were kind of not in this, in Sudan, of course, not, let's say, completely aligned or in cooperation. I think 90% of it was not. So I don't think it will have an effect. But as our institute, as I said before, our aim is to that Africa will be more prioritized both in Israel and in the US policy, and to bring a different model like we mentioned earlier. So definitely it's not the trend that we want to see, but we believe there is a door open for dialogue on this. If we say, you should keep it, it's important, or you should do that and this and that, or we seeing a different trend in corruption. For instance, in Zambia, we have that conversation where, look, we're seeing a lot of positive of moves by its part. We think the U.S. administration should look in a different manner on the subject. I think it's important, and I think it has an opportunity to do so.
Okay. There are several questions here, and
Irit, can you stop sharing?
Yeah, I don't know how
okay.
to do it. I want to ask you because I don't know where to stop
It's
sharing.
on the screen, I think, of the PowerPoint, you have stop share somewhere. So look at it. It's a red button somewhere.
Yeah. So there is definite interest between African states and Israel. If I look at the chat function here in terms of people studying at Haifa and issues of drip irrigation and so on. But I want to go back to two issues which were raised here. One is from Stephen Grust about the 40,000 African refugees in Israel is a figure that he, I think, mentions in his message. Can someone maybe respond to that?
I mean, there used to be 40,000. I don't think that number still holds. A lot of migrated to other countries, if I'm correct. Eliyah, maybe you remember. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
So basically, I think like there is more than 40,000 people. They are not just in the center of Israel. They are all around Israel. Basically, in Tel Aviv, there is Mesila. This is the way of like Tel Aviv municipality to help like this group of people, and it's really rare because like the municipality decided to give this services to this community, and we're talking about education, like medical support, like community activities, like social workers, and try to fill all the gaps there in their life in a way. But from the other end, like the government itself, like the Israeli government, have like their restrictions and their laws regarding these groups. So as a municipality, we try to do the best, but in the end, like there is an issue of people that enter to Israel in a way that it's not legal. Some of them, so there is an issue with that. But I think like in most of the groups out there, more than 15 years, 20 years already in Israel. I think more a big average of them, like they are like in these years in Israel. So we can see them like becoming part of the Israeli society in a way. They are working here, they study here, they go to the army, to the university. So we can see them engage with the Israeli community. Unfortunately, it's not like organized in the way that we want it to be organized, but this is the situation. And most of the municipalities try to do their best. And we have also big organization like trying to build also services to these communities. And we hope for the best. We hope like soon everything will be organized also from the government side.
Well, we are coming to the end of our conversation, and I just want to say something that Eliyah mentioned and Irit also mentioned, and that is that I think that academics can and academic bodies can play a unique role in terms of a dialogue. At the same time, there are challenges, and something that Irit mentioned. We at the University of the Free State, for example, had a relationship with Haifa University, but it simply was not resourced. It just wasn't resourced, and we had a couple of online meetings. One of the questions here in the chat is saying, well, this is a great webinar, when's your next one, and so on. Well, webinars are quite easy to organize, but fundamentally you are talking about people to people relationships, and I think this is the start of a process. I really want to thank Shiri for her enthusiasm when I raised it with her, and I know it was a difficult time. Okay, Irit, it's great reconnecting with you. Eliyah, I hope it's not the first and last time that we are in contact. I also want to do a little shout out to Sheldon Geller, who has been a mentor for me in terms of Africa studies for over several decades. And we've recently organized a webinar on Sudan recently. And so, Sheldon, thank you for your friendship for over the years. And so there is relations. You talk about Shiri, you talk about people-to-people relations. There are that, and we can capitalize on that. And I think, I mean, we don't have to agree with each other on many things, but we can build on what we do agree upon. And I think that's how you build trust. And I think it's true. I mean, if you're looking for a different kind of relationship, you need to think of long term. It's not put an investment here today and tomorrow, the profits are being reaped. I think that kind of relationship is very short term and doesn't go anywhere. So I certainly hope from our side that it's the start of a relationship, and I personally have been building relations with Israeli academics in an effort to understand. And I hope we can continue to do that from the chat function. There are people from all over Africa who are looking to engage, from Benin to the Congo, and so on, willing to engage and want to build this. I think there is a will, and I think we need to look beyond the constraints of the present and look to the future as we try to build. So maybe I will hand the floor to all three of you all for last words. But I do want to say that I've been especially happy having three very powerful, very influential women in this webinar. I am not only at the Center for Africa Studies, but we are a Center for Gender and Africa Studies, and it's very, very important to be engaging with you. So, Eliyah, Shiri, Irit, maybe a last word.
So I must say that I'm happy to see Sheldon Geller, who was one of my professors at the university a long time ago. So it's nice to see him again. And I just want to thank everyone here and say that it's wonderful, and especially that three women are here, and it's very important. It's for the first time in the history of Tel Aviv University, the director of the university is a woman. So it's history, and I think it's a great move toward the future of gender equality or something. So thank you for caring for it so much. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Shiri, any
we'll join you, and I will say thank you for having us. And I would like to say that I really believe in the connection between Africa and Israel. I think like this bridge, it's really important to the African continent, but also for Israel. And I hope, like, from this webinar, some of the people will get inspired and try to connect Israelis, companies and NGOs, and try to build this connection. And also you have a lot of people like me that share, and Irit and Shiri, that out of the profession, and also the eager to help and to build this bridge. So thank you very much for having us, and we are here if you need anything. Thank you.
So Hussein, I want to say thank you so much, and for you and the Free State for hosting this important webinar and all of your dialogues and webinar. I think it's really not common these days that you keep your academic freedom and you engage with whoever wants to engage back in such an open and candid way. And I thank you, and I thank Irit and Eliyah for their partnership and all the work they're doing and helping with the Institute to learn more and to grow. And this is really a life mission, I think, for both Eliyah and Irit, and lately for myself, that I really wanna, I'm on a mission to transform Israel's relations with Africa and Africa relations with Israel, and particularly in South Africa, where I see so much opportunity if we were just given a chance. So thank you for taking this first step. Not
Pleasure.
first, but one of many.
No, thank you, Shiri. Sorry, Sheldon, your hand is up. Would you like to say something? Can you just unmute yourself, please, Sheldon? Sorry, Sheldon, you are. Can you unmute yourself? Sheldon? The microphone is on your top right-hand corner.
Let's see. There's nothing we can do.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Thanks so much, colleagues. And Shiri and Irit and Eliyah, it was an absolute pleasure. And I hope there is a next one, a next engagement. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.